guys, welcome back to Benton Homestead. Here we are in our very hot, humid honeybee workshop, which we got all ready today for our first summer honey harvest, which was going to be a mixed flower honey. And when we got out to the honeybee yards with our sensei Kansan, things had changed significantly since Evan's last hive inspection, which was just last week. So it looks like we won't be having a summer honey harvest. So instead of doing a honey extraction today, we took the time to inspect each one of our colonies and determine which ones were ready for the next step, which is splits. So they still have enough time to prepare themselves for winter. So out of our 8 European colonies, we've determined that 4 of them are strong enough to be split, and 4 of them will be remaining 1 colony this year.
So it turns out that beekeeping in Japan is a lot harder than beekeeping in Louisiana for a lot of really interesting reasons that we'll probably make a video on soon. But for instance, we got more honey off of 1 colony in New Orleans than we got out of 9 colonies here in Japan. And our bee sensei did say that this has been an especially difficult year for beekeeping, but I digress. Now the eagle-eyed among you will notice that Danny mentioned we only have 8 colonies, whereas we started with 9. So what happened there is we had a weak colony and I requeened it last week, and apparently when that new queen hatched, she decided that wasn't a nice box for them, and she took and absconded, as we say, meaning that she just left with the entire colony. Now when a colony absconds, the first thing it does is each of the bees drink up all the honey they have saved in the hive so they can fuel themselves on their next journey. I think that might be why we don't have any honey to harvest today, because I did see some the last time I did an inspection a week ago. So we're going to do 1 split today and 3 more once we have those extra boxes prepped. And they like bananas. Come on, guys. Well, I've been thinking about our failed harvest for the past few days, and I realized that the reason there was no honey for us is that the bees ate it all. I had checked the hives just a week before then, and there was some frames to harvest, and by the time we got to it, it was all gone. So what had happened is the bees had run out of flowers to harvest, and they had eaten their stores. You'll remember this patch of buckwheat from previous videos. Look at how it's sprung up over a couple of weeks. The plan all along has been to grow nectar-producing crops to support our bees, only now we're realizing just how important that is. This buckwheat will produce a wonderful monofloral honey, and it's also a popular food crop in Japan. Buckwheat, or soba as it's known in Japan, is a pseudo-cereal, which means it's not a true grain, but it can be ground into flour. And in Japan, that flour is made into delicious noodles.
All right, we're putting the new honeybee workshop to good use. We have 3 more hive boxes here, ready to go. Let's talk about them real quick. I posted some pictures of these while I was painting to my Instagram stories, and I got some really good questions about the paint. People were asking about whether or not the paint affects the bees. What the paint does is that it adds some extra lifetime to the hives by protecting them from the weather, because they're constantly outside in the elements. So you can see here that we don't actually paint the inside of the hive. That goes for the inside of the lid as well. So any area that the bees themselves would come in contact with is left as nice raw wood. Now let's go see what Evan's building over here.
We're still in the dearth, which means there's nothing for the bees to eat. So we're going to have to start feeding each of our hives, which means they all need one of these feeder boxes. We're not sure we want to be feeding our bees every year because we prefer that they just subsist on their own natural honey. But this year, since it's the first year that we're raising bees, it's definitely a must to keep them healthy. So this is a feeder frame or feeder box. I just copied the design off of one that our bee sensei loaned to us. It's about the same dimensions as a standard Langstroth deep frame, and it holds about a gallon of sugar water. I'm using my brand new table saw to build these feeders. Each one costs around $15 new, and I'm able to build them myself for $4 to $5. So since we already need about 15, that's saving us $150 right off the bat.
the pond over here, suddenly there was just a massive amount of bees. They weren't clustered together like you think of when you think of a bee swarm. They were just everywhere. It was just a huge amount of bees, and we watched them just move over the pond and then move towards us here in the bee yard, and before we knew it, they were all around us, and they've entered and joined this hive. Minutes after we removed the queen, these wild bees brought their own queen in and have settled in our colony. This is just mind-blowing. I don't know if the video that I captured is going to do it any amount of justice. Just the odds of that happening are so low. It's pretty amazing. Thank you, bee. This colony is now half of our bees, and the size has at least doubled with the wild bees who just arrived with their own queen. So this is the colony that we took the queen and some frames from and moved here. And you can see that some of the new wild bee swarm is also trying to enter this colony. And what's amazing is that they're not fighting. Oftentimes you hear about colony robbing and fighting and that sort of thing. And it seems like maybe 5 to 10%, a small amount, but definitely some of the swarm has also just moved into this colony. And maybe they have accepted them easier because they had literally just been split minutes ago. Their colony had been moved with their queen, and within minutes these wild bees appeared. And maybe just the perfect storm of that happening has allowed the colony to accept these wild bees as their own. So in the process of moving frames around and rearranging colonies, we've spilled a little bit of honey here, but these ladies are working diligently to clean it up and no honey will go to waste. Alright, we're going to leave these splits to settle in. Let our wild bees settle in over here. We now have 12 colonies. They'll need a lot of health checks and inspections over the coming weeks to make sure everything is going well.
Well, I hope you like that twist ending. You never know what you're going to get here on Benton Homestead. But we're almost sold out of our 2 harvests for 2024, so the rest of the year is just going to focus on maintenance and getting us ready for an even bigger harvest in 2025. I hope you'll join us on the journey.